There it is. Hey everybody, and welcome you guys. And this is welcome to Conscious Talk TV, and I'm your host Linda Summers, and we are providing information to bring awareness to humanity with our guest. And we have Rick Dewars tonight. Yay! And the topic is the feminine is now placed within the Trinity. So with that, let's welcome Rick to the show. Hey Rick.
Hi, Linda. Hi, everyone. Thank you. And this is so fun again to be here tonight. We're going to, have so much fun with it. So it's great. I love all of you, and thank you for tuning in to these most auspicious times.
Right? It's exciting. It's going to be really exciting. There we go. We got the horn. That was the confirmation.
Yeah, we're getting. Okay, before you begin, so okay, here's my coffee mug. This is my coffee mug, and do you want some conceit about the Japan earthquake, or no? It's just truth. It's not conceit. But then here's the topic for tonight.
That's right, the feminine. Woo!
Yes, always right. Woo! Okay.
Oh, how perfect.
I'll zip.
Oh, Rick. Okay. Oh my gosh. Well, before we even dive into about the feminine, I wanted to mention on the last show, I didn't mention this, and Rick's like, you should have mentioned it. And I was like, well, I didn't want to take away from the show. But when we talked about how Rick was saying in the prerequisites that you could, what did you say? You could meet your shadow, or it's about releasing the shadow ego. Is that what it was? I can't remember.
Yeah, at the time when you have the balance of the yin and yang, when you balanced, you did your work with the negativity and the light, and you're ready to advance forward, and the light eating up all the negativity you have, that is the point where you will be visited in some form or another by your shadow self. That is an actual aspect of you, which is an entity. Yeah, and
yes.
And for some, it can become, very scary when they don't know what is actually happening. But you are actually at that moment too fighting against yourself. The light is fighting the dark within at that moment, and it's very great when you see that and experience that moment, because hey, guess what? That means you're going on here to bigger things, that you are able. You have conquered your darkness. You have separated it, and it'll try to get back in sometimes, but it doesn't. You are the boss, and eventually it must go as you integrate more of the light and your higher consciousness, which everything comes part and parcel with that.
Yeah, and it was just really interesting how it was the night before we actually had the show, and I had spoke to Rick about it, and it was a really creepy dream. I mean, it was really pretty scary, and I remember at one point just saying, I love Jesus, I love Jesus, I love Jesus, I love Jesus. And I just really just kept saying that. And, but it was where it was actually, I told Rick before the show, I could actually see, I mean, this guy was like, he shift, like morphed. He would morph. Yeah, shape shifting. Yes, he morphed, and I remember him being like the body on the table, which I'm assuming was me, and this spirit coming out. It was just it was just a crazy dream, and we thought we should bring that up because Rick said it was something important that we really should.
Yeah, Linda. For what I received on that is that we mentioned, you can be awake, or it can occur during the dream state, because you are still conscious. But what I'm saying is that it can occur in the dream state or while you are awakened, and it is so important. There was something else I was just going to say, but that escaped. Go ahead.
Well, that's all I really had to say on that. So it was just, it was really interesting to find out that that was my shadow self, and it was a confirmation. And
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
and
I
so
know
yeah,
what I was to say, if I may. Um,
yes,
Again, for the viewers, I had an awakening process as well. I was, let's say, an atheist and a human before my awakening. But when I had confronted my dark self, when it separated, I was kind of prepared beforehand divinely what to do. And I had, I believe, 2 to 3 encounters with my dark self, but each time I would say the mantra or affirmation, what have you, and I would say in the name of God, the Father, and the Holy Son. And I would repeat that as loud as I could 3 times. And, it kept it at distance until I became a little bit stronger each time. And each time it would come back, it would be weaker until, I finally mastered that. And that began right at my awakening, right around that time as well.
yeah, yeah, so cool. And yes, Jerry, that's true. Jerry had said it's not always in a dream state. That is correct, because Rick was saying that in the last show, that it is not always in a dream. It could be in a dream. It could be in the awakened state. So
Yes.
wonderful. Being said, let's dive into the feminine.
Whew.
Yes, not to negate you masculine, because we love you, but um, the feminine are really rising. And so we're we're just going to skim over the history of why the feminine were suppressed, because there's a lot of information we could actually dive into, which Rick and I have had some conversation but we don't want to do that because we want to really get to why it is important now. But we do want to talk about the history really of the suppression. And so there's the points that we're going to go through to kind of keep us in a flow of really bringing us into the now. And so, Rick, the first one, let's talk about the old patriarch view, cavemen and other primates.
Um, okay. Before I begin right on to that, what I wish to say, which is very important through this whole, it pertains to the whole broadcast. What I wish to say is that any beliefs are energy, and they can carry restrictive qualities with them. And let me also say that the dark was ingenious in constructing false histories and false beliefs just for that exact intent. And with that, again, I wish to say it it is and was the fear of the feminine rising that a lot of these false histories and false beliefs were presented to ones to control them. So, one of the things that you began off with, could you rephrase, Linda, again what you had said? I got carried away.
Yeah, and before I even do that, I do want to let people know that on the YouTube video, there will be auto translation in your language. So we've got that set up. So I just wanted to let you guys know that in case I forget. Yeah, so we're going to just kind of, about the old patriarch view, which started with the cavemen. They were there to protect, the women were there to take care of the children. So that kind of began. Men, men were hunters, protectors, and things like that.
Well, indeed, and again, with uh, these sort of histories, what it was conditioned, into the human mentality that a male would be a protector, the patriarch would be the protector, he would be the aggressor, whereas the matriarch would be the childbearing and caring of the children in a bubble of, let's say, protection from the male. But what it incurred is that the female could remain in her state of unconditional love with the bond between the children, and being the symbol of love in all respect with that, while the male, what they had written in histories, was an aggressor. He would go out and hunt, kill animals, fight, and males would fight over some of the females. So there was all that aggression aspect that has also been ingrained into the beliefs, and so yeah, it's prevalent.
Yeah.
As we're going to see throughout the show, through beliefs, religion, through history. It's in everything, but we are in the time now that is being changed once and for all.
Yeah. And this is just really to give everybody like a viewpoint as to the suppression, which a lot of you probably already know as well. And that kind of leads us into the history. We talked about the history was not written correctly. We didn't evolve from cavemen. There was a DNA experiments being done. And of course, you mentioned about the different belief systems due to the history. So, according to, we go to school and we see in the history books, that we were taught that this is how history was, right? But we're saying that history was not written correctly.
It was not. What I wish to say as well, history served also different timelines, different perspectives, and different aspects of the veil being completely down, the blinders on, to secure you in a certain timeline. And at this time, no, we are, the veil is lifted, and we are going out, and we know what the intents and purposes were for some of these very intentional restrictions that were applied. Again,
and then
go ahead, please.
No, go ahead.
Well, actually, I need to know what you said again, because I know there's several aspects I need to comment on, if you may.
Yes. Where I was saying that we didn't evolve from cavemen, but there was also DNA experiments that were being done as well.
Yeah, thank you. What we need to, Darwin's theory of evolution, if you will, and similar theories. In this time, we know for what we are, the awakened ones, that they're not correct, and that actually something else did transpire, which is more readily acceptable. And when you began seeing what archaeology is beginning to present, in these times on the 4D level, are things that will contradict histories like that. For instance, underwater cities being found, artifacts being found that are abnormal, like tracks, wagon tracks in millions of year old bedrock in Turkey of a wagon that went through. It defies what is written. In North America, different artifacts that are not in alignment with history. Many Egyptian pictographs in places up here in BC, in Canada, in caves and on the rocks that don't align with history. The list is extensive, and it's also put here for this very important time to also assist with the ascension, but to give you some transitional steps to grab on as you raise higher, instead of being here and trying to get up here and wondering what's going on. there is a transition, and the transition is integrated in the perspectives and how they're being changed, and by new things that are constantly being introduced to the collective to show them that written histories are not correct, and also, let's say, manipulated and falsely written with an intent,
Yeah.
purpose.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we also talked about, how in the ancient times that women and men were actually pretty equal because there was goddesses. And I think it wasn't that the time of Atlantis and Lemuria,
And it
or
was,
no, that was actually before that.
yeah, the land of Mu, and so many,
Hmm.
what we see, and I was doing a little bit more research on this today, because, we spoke on this, we touched on these things last night, Linda, and what I've
Yeah.
been finding, like you had mentioned, Nefertiti, and that was
Mhm.
in what, roughly 1300 BC. We see the feminine throughout the, let's say, the Eastern
Mhm.
cultures in Europe, in
Yeah.
what they would call pagan mythology, but even Greek mythology. When we go back prior to the Christ, if you will, or at 1 AD, prior to
Yeah.
that, what we are
Yeah.
seeing is that the feminine actually were, uh, let's say, equal, at least, with the males. And, all of these
Mhm.
ancient cultures with Atlantis, Lemuria, um, as we say, right up to the Egyptian times. Uh, but what I have found very significantly, let me say, I innerly knew it, but it just confirmed it today. It's it got everything to do with the Romans, and around that year zero, that things really did change.
Yeah. Which brings the next point about the and how the Bible. So that's when the Romans conquered, and of course, then the Bible came in, was written by all men. The women were omitted, and so that's when the whole Christianity came into play.
Exactly, and
You want to?
quickly look at the Bible. There are many good truths in the Bible, but there are many lies and
Mhm.
there are many deceptions. And um, but as you just said, I looked earlier today. Over 1,500 years, the Bible was supposed to have been written by more than 40 men had written it. You don't see women. Again,
Mhm.
why not in such an important thing in creation? I mean, you have the feminine and you have the male, and we were designed that way, if you will, in the physical vessels to procreate, but to
Yeah.
also, um, be in a higher state of being, not the way that it was. But I'll stop there
Yep.
and go
Yeah.
ahead.
I know we can dive deep. We just want to skim over. So we talked about the religions suppressing the females, and you wanted to point out which religions that actually had suppressed. Did you want to do that?
Well, yeah, I will. Islam, again, yeah, but hold it. Through all these religions, there is the oppression of the feminine. And I was surprised to see that. Hinduism, supports it to some degrees, but even Buddhism, I was surprised to see that, in certain things that were written, that always puts the feminine subordinate. You know, it it's it is throughout, and but mainly with Islam, that religion is that, as most of the viewers know, and it's looking at the feminine as being the property of a man, and subordinate and
Yeah.
must obey. And, where, let's say in that religion, that you could look at polygamy, where a male has several wives. But not only that, when you go deeper into some of the religious beliefs, you see, fathers more or less selling their daughters, prearranged marriages, and
Mm-hmm.
and these sort of things. And what this does, this was so important in upsetting the balance of Gaia and the vibration here. When you take a feminine, a female, that she is born and retains the unconditional love, which a male
Mm-hmm.
is usually transitioned out of, because in his early stages, oh, he's told to be a man, which takes him away
Mm-hmm.
from the true power and the true unconditional love. But what you see when societies and religions oppresses and suppresses the female energy and turning her into living a life of misery and subordinance, that's when you begin messing with very powerful energies, which creates negativity, which is connected to Gaia and everything that happens on the planet. So over time and on a large scale, it creates unharmony. And this is also what brought us to this time. And it also is the reason why I am here now, the reason you are here, and so many more powerful divine ones. And it's to correct everything with the energetics, because everything is energy. And again, what had happened upon the planet, that the vibration and the energy, uh, not only through suppressing and oppressing the powerful feminine, but also in conjunction with mining upon the planet, the relocation and dispositioning of very energetic and electrical mineral deposits did cause a pole reversal, magnetic pole reversal. And it had caused that in 2012, right in line with the Mayan calendar, except the actual apocalypse, magnetic pole reversal, occurred between November 18th and November 23 in 2012. As far as I know, I may be the only one that experienced that. But however, I'm kind of thinking that over the last several years, I did see perhaps maybe another one or so that also knew what actually occurred. But having said that, it's again, this is about the suppression and oppression of the female. So I will keep on that topic without getting sidetracked too much.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, well, and we did talk about the reason on the women were suppressed because of what they knew and the love and the power that we had. So it was to shut us down and to suppress us. Yes.
Yeah, so there was, and this is where it may get a little bit confusing for some. But before I speak, uh, it is important again to know that the more you awaken and the more you come into your divinity, that perspectives will change. And it's important to keep recognizing that one belief that you may have that resonates now could change as you keep going higher. And it has to, because we are creating new timelines where some of these old beliefs can no longer be there. So we need to energetically omit them.
Right.
Now,
Yes.
could you ask the question again? This is three
Well, it
times.
was more of that's okay. It was more of when the Greek mythology in the ancient times, when the men and women were equal, the women had we had the power. We have the because the we know that the highest energy and the highest power is love. I don't want to call it power, but you
Mhm.
know that exists. And so the women do have that. So that's why we were suppressed because of the power that we held. We spoke a little bit. We don't have to get a lot into it, but we spoke a little bit about when women were being burned at the stake, they were being hunted down, um, because they had the healing powers. A lot of that stuff.
Yeah. So, what I've been looking at, and so it occurred shortly before what we are given as the Christ time again. That previous, but what we were seeing when we look back on certain histories is that there was pretty well an equality there. But it's
Yeah.
what, again, if you look at the most prevalent timeline, something occurred just prior to 2000 or 20, sorry, at the year 0.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Perfect. Well, it kind of goes into, we're just kind of going through the history a little bit, you guys, just to kind of show you how, how the feminine have been suppressed to, that's bringing us up to now, as I mentioned earlier. So then we talked about women couldn't even vote until 1920. So there wasn't the women, didn't have the right to vote. I don't know if you really want to speak on that. We can just make that a point, because we all
well,
really kind of know that.
yeah, well, again, the women were suppressed. That's in the U.S. and Canada. Women could not vote till some of them until 1917. But in
Uh-huh.
Canada, not all women could actually vote until 1960, before Aboriginal women here were allowed to vote. But again, there were reasons for that, and it's because of
Hmm.
what had occurred with the darkness over several thousand years with their intent to suppress the feminine. And it was intentional to do it. And so ever since that time, we have seen, um, similar, or we have seen a few important, perhaps, uprisings of the feminine to make statements which, were successful to various degrees, but overall, like right through society, right up to, well, you may as well call it modern times in 1960 or after wars and everything. And, still right up until that time, the feminine oppressed and suppressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then it goes into then women finally were allowed into the military. And then, of course, we had the Women's Lib movement in 1960 and continued into the 1980s. So women started to rise to stand up for equality.
Mm-hmm. So these sort of things, like the women's lib movement, was very instrumental in changing part of the tide and the equality. But you always saw that there would be that patriarch uh, figure there that would always suppress it to some degree. And what I'm saying is that it was intentional. Now, let me not
Yeah.
say by individual males, but it was ingrained within the belief systems, within societies, intentionally and deliberately to, always disempower the female from, well, from her most exquisite and, let's say, her powers overall. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. So,
And then we've got the hippie We've got the hippie movement in the 60s. The goddesses, the females made broad statements.
Yeah,
Oh,
and this was quite interesting. Yes, they did. And,
yeah.
coming back in the masculine aspect, what I wish to say, through this, there is that what we could look at the minority of the overall masculine. When I say masculine, I mean, the male population upon the planet. But there is that minority that knows where, the great strength lays. It's, in the feminine and in the masculine that do awaken and embrace their feminine side. Then, hey, they're right there with the feminine in that aspect. Now, with the hippie movement, which was great, that was again, many things were done there. What was interesting to find out is I did a little bit of research on that, and it went back to a sort of a religion, Mazdak,
Oh,
in the 500s. So in the year
wow.
530, 540, that um, essentially, this is kind of where the hippie movement originated from. And in the 500s, even, there were communities that were going against the societal grain. And even then, they were moving away from it. So I found that very interesting, and that was something I didn't know, you know,
Yeah.
until today. But again, instrumental in the goddesses, yeah,
Mhm.
coming alive and taking their place and joining in standing up. And again, so significant.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then you talked about child services attempts to separate children from their mothers, especially the ones that were gifted and they were born into families of poverty.
Yeah. Now, yeah, very good. And at this time, a lengthy subject. And, for the viewers and many more that will watch this, they can identify with that thing. They know,
Hmm.
for example, their own children that they're gifted, or they'll know, that their daughters or sons' children are gifted, and they'll see, like, under what you would call unusual circumstances, they seem to be targeted. That there would be things set up, uh, you know, perhaps even beyond astronomical odds, that would allow for social services or some governmental aspect to step in there. And to get right to the point and to be blunt, these children are very special, as we know, and they are born with, let's say, more DNA than what extra strands of DNA, and they're also born more crystalline. The crystalline component is right in their blood. So for any nefarious, malevolent um, energy in the past would be very interested in these, and that is, why that occurred. But also, it's to diminish the powerful female, to intimidate her, to put her in a state of fear. So it was done and is done a bit yet today intentionally to do that. And also, it's to separate again that unconditional love bond between a mother and her child. And it's done because they are afraid of the unconditional love. And, it was the darkness, but what we're currently dealing with, even yet now in this moment on these 4D timelines, is breaking down the energetic dark constructs, which they are remnants of beliefs. We have taken out Satan and uh, the most powerful dark angels, if you will, the real and actual representations. But what exists here, what we are cleaning up, are the energetic threads of darkness that remain here because people believe them. And that
Mhm.
was what's keeping them alive and keeping them energized. And again, the way to break that is for any female that may be watching this, any feminine, well, the masculine as well, even families.
Yeah.
Uh, if you're being feel that you are targeted, no, do not give your consent away. Stand up and call in whatever you need. Now, having said that, what I am suggesting going forward, we have the Real Angels page there that we have many gathered now, and it's growing very rapidly. Is what we
Yeah.
are going to do if we need to do it is, hey, if one mom gets targeted, let's all band together and support her. Enough of this bullshit. You don't go to the governments and this. What you do is you rally the 99% of the people and all the
Yeah.
moms. And then they got a huge problem against, that feminine energy. And well, if we look at the numbers, what's leading the charge is, let's say 75% are females, but we have about 25% of powerful males like myself, that will stand in unison with this as well. So what I'm suggesting, no more of this. They're not taking the children away, and in whatever means people can organize what we need to do and to stand up and
Yeah.
just stamp them right out. They either have to conform to what what the energies dictate now, or they implode. Speaking about government services, governments, and all of this, they have no choice, and they cannot stand up against this immense divine prowess. And it can be organized very quickly and structured very quickly to do so. So it's important to keep these children safe and, yes, with their moms as we keep going forward, and that will be divinely assured in more ways than one. And we don't put the fear of God in anyone, but they must realize any social worker, once they do something that is not morally and ethically uh, correct, but something that is not out of love, then what they do is they set off a karmic implosion upon themselves. And this is what is occurring upon the planet. Only anything with the intent for the good of all and love supported notions and acts and reactions are the only thing that is supporting and that uplifts. Anything contrary to that, it sets off a karmic implosion upon the one, and they get bombarded with, let's say in the past where they might only get bombarded with one thing a day, they could get bombarded multiple times in one day with this, because we are
Mhm.
also in the time where each judges themselves by their actions and their reactions. God does not judge. The souls here judge themselves where they go by what they do in their actions. So we are in the judgment days, but what I'm giving you, and most of you know that nothing is ever going to be the same. We know that divinity is here more than 100%, let's say billions of percent. That divinity is here. You're seeing it in the skies, you're seeing it in the magic, you're seeing it in all of the angels. You are seeing it. One thing, you may look
Yeah.
outside and look at a 4D world, and you may see a lot of conditioned ones, but you must understand, with all the viewers that's watching this, that you are multidimensional and that we work in different dimensions, different timelines, and we are here to change all of this that you see outside. Don't ever think for one moment that you're not having an effect, because the ripple
Yes.
effect is so true in just one of you standing in your divine prowess affects and changes everything here.
Yeah, and we're really seeing that with the France, that's one of our points as well. What's going on in France? You had
Mm-hmm.
mentioned about the women being on the streets and standing up.
Indeed, and it's so important. And what quickly on that child services thing, when the
Yes.
Vatican, when the British monarch and the colonists began to come to North America, they would always have the church with them, and this holds true. You'll see in any of the conquests in history what is written, you always see the church there, and they come in. And part of their malicious intent, again, is to separate the children from the parents, to break that energetic bond because they were so afraid of it, because it is unconditional love. And when they break that, they break the spirit, and they also subdue the feminine and also the masculine, and they controlled them. So that is their intents and purposes, what they always did. Now, getting to what you said about France, very impressive. You know, we started speaking, Linda, about doing the show a couple days ago, you know, and
Mm.
I've been saying, you know, the feminine is rising. Now is the time. I was in the mountains for a few days, spoke with council, spoke with, you know, God. And what I get is now is the time for the feminine to rise much higher, to go much further ahead. They are leading the charge with this ascension. Now is the time. Don't hesitate. Don't stop. So I come out of the mountains with that message, and I don't get it really written anywhere. And then, you know, I touched base with you and a couple other powerful angels, and we talked about this, and
Mm.
bang, you know, within the last few days, we're seeing it there in the reality. You know, in the France, what's going on with France with the yellow vest movements, but it's also it, it's all over, and in India, and we're seeing it. It's just so much more. I just did not have the liberty to. I know I could do it. Just you know, just have a look around the globe on the internet, and I could probably find so many confirmations of that. But again, for what I am, I don't need the confirmations for myself. But what I do is I love having them to put out to the others and say, you know, hey, this is very real. What's happening? Here are your 4D confirmations that it is so. And, you know, for anyone new that's awakening and thinks that, you know, in the early stages of awakening, thinking that this is bullshit and that it's imaginary and fantastic, or, you know, whatever they may wish to label it. Well, it's always great having these 4D confirmations just to say, hey, look at this. Then very quickly, they cannot deny nor refute it. You know, they have to accept it as a fact. And then it begins boosting them higher and get them up here with us. And also, you know, that's what it's all about with this ascension. There's many of us here that are going forward, and, and that's what we do. Nothing stops us. There is no obstacle. Anything that we need, we are divinely supported with that. And I'll stop there.
Yes,
Yes.
amen. Well, that kind of brings us into really when you're talking about as the women are standing up and you know with their children or whatever wherever we are, just all the women just standing up the divine is the words that we use today that were introduced to society. You know, we talked a little bit about, you know, there's conceit, you know, yeah, don't allow the words to keep you from your prowess is what you're, you know, sort of what you were touching on a little bit before that. So there were words that were used, right?
Exactly, you know, and if I know there's been divine ones that have seeded and put that documentation and evidence here for this now, the play on words. And it is so important, and it is so true. Very quickly, for one to uh, believe they are being egotistical, grandiose, or conceited by saying that they are an angel, well, that restricts them. Those words were put here for those very purposes, for suppression, not only to the feminine, to the male, to for everything in
Humanity.
alignment with ascension. It was intentionally put here beforehand to restrict you from owning your gifts and owning what you are. For example, if you think it is good to be extremely modest and humble in restrictive ways to yourself, well, look at what I just said. You are restricting yourself. You are restricting your prowess when you do that. You have to own your divinity, what you are. And I cannot emphasize the importance of that enough. That's what takes many of you, as you know, into your higher degrees of prowess. When you stand up and you own that, you quickly see reflections of magic in your reality. Those are your confirmations to tell you keep doing it and that it is true.
Hmm. Yeah, and I what I hear you saying too, it's not just really for the feminine, but it's for all of humanity, because
Yes.
it was intently brought in. Hmm.
Yeah, so many words. We probably, there's books written on this as well. There's probably so many elaborate words intentionally, made for those intents and purposes to suppress. And, very
Yeah.
quickly, it is quite hilarious with legal terms, the the legal jargon or whatever you wish to call it, and it's
Yeah.
intentionally made that way to deceive, right? And for
Yes.
one to give away their consent, and that's why it was designed that way allow others to have power over you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And which kind of brings us into the next one about the circumstances of single moms today are caused by the government.
Yeah, and very important,
The government.
Yeah, and I was speaking with an important divine comrade a few days ago, and she had the liberty to speak one on one to a social services one, and she presented that truth right to that one. This is caused by the current society and the governments. When you have single moms out there, trying to do their best, and they're given little to do it with, well, you have to look at the governments themselves, where they suppressed everyone and made different classes of the feudal system. I mean, everyone does their best. A mom loves her children, and and again, what I'm doing with that, and what a very powerful divine comrade did, is to show them it's not the
Mhm.
single mom or the individual that is at fault. It's the systems
Yeah.
and the corrupt
System.
governments and societies that are intentionally designed to do that. And in this case, they were after these children. They wanted them because they're very powerful, special children. And they were just
Yeah.
so desperate to try whatever they can do to get these children, put them in schools, use them as guinea pigs, and all of these certain things, but also to
Hmm.
separate them from their powerful mom and to break that
Hmm.
powerful unconditional love energy that the feminine has there. One of the most precious and divine and pure energies is that unconditional love. And they're so afraid of it, so they try to break it because they cannot be it. And it's
Right.
that simple. You look
Right.
at any politician or any government, I mean, how ridiculous is it? People are supposedly elect, representatives of the people. how many times do you ever see any politician or representative of the people? Look at all the ridiculous laws that they legislate and and
Yeah.
that they enact. It's absolutely preposterous. So there's an underlying intent once the politician gets in there, if you will. Okay, he's got a whole bag of goodies, an expense card, and he comes to find out his job is actually not to represent the people, but it's to protect the small governments and these other things so they can continue to live their lives of luxury at the expense actually of all the slaves, which are the populace. And there's no
Yes.
other way to
Yes.
look at it. I mean, you can go out and if you had an intelligent discussion with anyone in the law enforcement agency or the government that was actually a soul or had a heart, you know, uh, and if you had an intelligent discussion with them, it could very quickly tell you if they have a soul or not. Because, I mean, once you know the
Mhm.
truth and once you see it, it is no choice for a soul but to do the right thing, which again would be leaving law enforcement that is actually out to protect themselves and go with uh, the majority, the people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I have something to say on that, but we have a question from Stephanie. Why does CPS need to test children academically, such as advanced child above advanced?
Well, see, what they have done is they also made many stipulations and provisions in there, but
Hmm.
you can put them all in a bag again, Stephanie. When you look at
Hmm.
it, it is intentional. And, with this ADHD or ADD or whatever you wish to call it, that is not a disease. That is actually, it is the children transitioning into the higher states of consciousness, knowing that what's being taught in the schools is a bunch of gibberish and rubbish. It's not the truth.
Hmm.
And so what they do, governments and these sort of things will, perhaps class them as special needs and label them sick,
Right.
which in actuality, it's the other way around. It's the black pot calling the kettle the whatever that saying goes. And
Yeah.
but again, their intent is yes to suppress the children, and you know I am also a great advocate that all the children needs to be taken out of the public school systems the way they are. They don't serve civilization. They serve savagery. And here you are teaching the children for generations to come to continue this old enslavement thing, which is savage and
Yeah.
unequal and fundamentally unjust, and anything you can throw at it. So why are you teaching children, this sort of stuff? And it's just absolutely sickening.
Yeah.
So it's got to
Yeah.
come
It
down.
definitely is. Yeah. Breaking down the system.
Yeah.
Well, and that brings me just to what I heard when you were talking about, just standing up and just not giving your consent is really that's what these shows are really about, with bringing you on board to relay this information so we can speak the truth, so we know what's being privy to what's really going on around. And of course, the awakened ones do know, but the more that we start to do this, it feels like the more that other people are going to wonder, well, I want some of that. Like, I want to know how she's, why she's always feeling that good or whatever it is, and just speaking the truth and just saying what is so. I think that's really important. And when the more that we can get out this truth of what's really happening, that's why we're doing these shows to raise the to raise the vibration. So for this ascension is really important.
Yeah.
So when you know the truth, speak the truth.
Indeed. And one of the simplest things to do when you're perhaps when you're getting injustice imposed upon you, Just say no. You don't accept it. You say no. You don't say, oh, well, what can I do to get out of this? Or what can I do that would make you feel better? You say, no, I don't accept it. And that's where it begins when you stand in your truth. And the opposing party then has to begin to back off. They'll start stuttering. They'll become more angry because what you're actually doing is you're not taking their fair energy and it's pushed back on them, which is causing more tension within them. And what they do is they begin to implode. Stand there in your light. Do not accept it. Stand in your divine truth, and watch what happens. And you're going to be very impressed with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just helps to raise the vibration to this ascension as well.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. We talked about France, but also, let's talk about. I mean, we can just go over the wage discrimination between sexes and how Trump, in one of his interviews, he had mentioned about equal pay.
Yeah, I will say I was very pleased to see that, and it is out there in one of Trump's interviews, where he is asked, I believe, by a female reporter, what about the wage disparity between the sexes? And, what Trump had mentioned then is that if a woman does the same amount of work as a man, there's equal pay, and that he supports that right there now. Uh, what I'm looking at, it was important that the question was brought up, but he readily, let's say, addressed it without much thought. That meant that that was part of his own thoughts. It was already there within him that he could make that immediate response. Not saying that he just made what he thought the lady would want to hear, or let's say constituents or what have you. He said what was there within him to support that aspect. So what I look at with that, it was worth notable mention, in this, because again, it's part of the transition that you see, that the realization is also there, where the feminine has to become equal and not oppressed and suppressed. And we can look at this society today that we're in. You're still not there, but we are going there, and it's going to be. And it's things like what Trump said in that little speech. These things all add up, and they do have energy behind them.
Yeah, and what I think is really fascinating and just really wonderful is the fact that Trump said that. You know what I mean? Given the fact of when he was going for office, and he's a womanizer and whatever, and just in just the things that he's really trying to not trying, but he's bringing to light the truth. And I'm not for anybody or whatever, you know what I mean? But except for truth, that's what I'm all about. And so when the truth is being revealed, and I just think that that was an important comment, like as you said, that he made, that as we're talking about with the feminine rising and saying that comment.
Mm-hmm. Now, I wish to say I don't take political sides, and I don't get much into politics, but again, I will state the truth here, that with Trump, with the wall, anything that separates people, I do not support, not at all. And anything that is not of equal gender, no, because this is not what we are heaven, where we are going. It's not what we are creating. At this time, what I'm given about Trump with that wall is that it's actually a ruse. At this time, it's not going to be about that, because that wall is not going to be built where we're at. And in fact, all walls will be torn down, including the walls around the Vatican. And that's getting very close. And no more of this. So, but having said that, we are in transitory times where if we were not transitioning incrementally, if we made great leaps, then you would have chaos. Because what you still have out there is a lot of the public that are not awakened. And that is where the chaos could come from as well. So things are marginally done, is what Father says, to transition into the other timelines.
Do you feel that there's going to be other I saw a post on Real Angels, but do you feel that there's going to be another media aspect of some sort to, or will it be used in what we're, what the media is now? Of course, we know that's all set up by the government, but is there going to be a way, I guess what I'm asking is there going to be a way for the public that are not awakened to be able to hear the truth of what is going on?
I believe so. What I'm feeling, we are at the point now that there are enough awakened to alleviate any very abrupt chaos with things. So, what I am
Yeah.
feeling at this time that, the higher truths could be delivered at any time. And so, having said that, we could have quick, immediate shifts in that respect that even though they're not fully aware, they can be fully brought up to date very quickly without any
Yeah.
chaos with it. But again, a lot hinges on these 4D realities where the Trump things are playing out and the
Mhm.
indictments and all of these. There is that time factor involved with that. However, it sets off so much of the change to more securely cleanse the first 5D timeline. Many of us, for your viewers, and the way that I gauge it, we are on 5D uh, most of the time, but we do go down into 4D when we encounter like what I'm putting on about in Canada. I've just been putting on the few hours ago about the Indigenous rights being fully imposed upon international united declarations of humanitarian rights being ignored, being violated. You're looking at huge international humanitarian protection charters being violated by the Canadian government and law enforcement agency up here in respect to this. I mean, it's absolutely preposterous what's going on the 4D,
Mhm.
but it has to be done to pave the way to put this 4D into the 5D, clear of all of these things.
Yeah, and I just heard what I think is important and what you have reiterated before, or said before, is the fact that this is all divinely orchestrated. There really is this plan that that divinity has to orchestrate all of this.
It is, let me say, this could be done in less than a blink of an eye. However, we are experiencing it on linear time for the most part. And again,
Yeah.
I have to say this again. Many of the viewers, you may not even be on these lower timelines. We might just keep going higher once the job is done here. You're
Yeah.
already beginning. Many of your viewers, perhaps all of them, have already begun experiencing the divine magic, and that's only the beginning. What I wish to say on that.
Yeah. Yeah, which is perfect because it leads us really into the next one where the feminine are taking us to levels never seen before, using their divine prowess and owning it. You go, women, let's do this.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, we're
yeah,
gonna rally together. That's right. Let's get us all
yeah.
together. We're gonna make a statement.
Well, they are the ones, see, as well.
Yeah.
Everyone that's awakened and ascending are constantly having their energetic prowesses increased as they leave go of the dark and the negative. They are bringing in more light, which is boom, powering them up like that. Yeah, I saw how light the screen got, right? So that's how it works. And
Yeah.
and it is true. So having said that, you are more powerful now than what you were in 2011. Excuse me. And again, don't take my word for it. Go out and test your divine prowess, and you'll be very amazed and impressed at yourself. And we're here. We mean business. We're divinely here to do this. And you girls that stand together, the unity and the gathering, your immense strength, it's just nothing. You are invincible when you all stand together. You can plow down,
Yes.
everything. And that is not bullshit. That is truth. I know this, and I know many of you do as well. You know how divinely much more stronger you have become just over, the last, even not even the last several years, but even the last few months. I mean, many of you are seeing it. So there is no refuting nor denying that. And, and it is so amazing to see, part of my divine mission here is to work with mostly the feminine. And I recognize them as the strongest leading force in this ascension. And again, anytime that I perhaps refer to a statistic, to anything that's available to me, I come by seeing mostly that it's 75% feminine and 25% male. That is the proportion of the overall awakened ones, the divinity. And when you have that, I mean, hey, there you go, 75% are feminine. That is the leading charge. And
Yeah.
the 25% masculine, we go with this as a whole, but it's just that you're going to be seeing in numbers more females that are more powerful because of the numbers. But we're
Do
all
you?
together in this.
Yeah. That was going to be my question. Do you think that the men will like pick it up, start to where it's not going to be this such well, I don't want to say the word imbalance, but I know the feminine we need for that, but will you think the men will rise to the occasion, so to speak?
What I'm given is that when we reach a certain point, it will be 50-50. But until we get there, the feminine are leading the charge. And every time, let's say that the feminine, the 75% raises up, the masculine comes up with them. But there comes a time when this feminine and masculine, when that gap is not very broad, that it allows the feminine to jump ahead again. And you have the rubber band effect that the masculine also come. So we are at a time right now where you have the 25% powerful masculine, which is becoming more impressive. I do watch them a bit as well because I need that as a
Yes.
control and a gauge. But we are at the point now where that gap is becoming very slim. So that means the feminine are now ready to jump up again and raise the entire vibration of Gaia even higher yet. And guess what?
Yeah.
Every time you do that, it amplifies the magic, it amplifies
Mhm.
and enhances everyone's gifts, and you become that much more powerful. And and you know, having said that, for any of the males, masculine, watching this, we are a part of that feminine inequality as well. We have embraced our feminine aspects. That's why we are awakened. That's why we are
Yeah.
considered the masculine side of it. And we are the balance for doing that. As the feminines go ahead, you know, we hold down the fort of balance, if you will. But it is their strong unconditional love and the prowess from that that allows them to keep going forward while, let's say, we take up the rear here and watch and guard that. But it is the feminine, again, that is leading the charge because of their love prowess, which it is. And I can really not put it any simpler than that. And you know, at this point in time, I wish to share with all the viewers one of the most gratifying and very impressive acknowledgments that I received while I was in the mountains a few days ago, you know, from Father. I was given some signs, but also given telepathically, and I was in connection with divine counsel. And what I come back out of that mountain with is that the feminine is actually in what you would consider a 3 point trinity. The feminine actually takes up one of those points. And for what the intents and purposes for using it as a gauge or a mechanism to show how important the feminine is. What I'm more or less given with this is that you have God, you have uh, what we recognize as the Christ consciousness, but you now have forming the Trinity, the feminine, the unconditional love, which is actually the Holy Spirit, if you will. And you know, when I received that, I had to stop again and just think, you know, just from the human part, how invaluable that was to acknowledge that. And what I, you know, quickly did a sort of a rationalizing uh, in the human aspect of me, just seeing what that meant in thought and how to purvey that forward. And let me say the feelings with it, as you know, is just so gratifying for that recognition of where the feminine actually stands right now at this very time in this ascension. And it is one of the most impressive, grateful places to be. So you have the feminine actually right beside the Christ, which is the masculine, and then you have God. So there's the three, the Trinity. So, you know, in reality, we know that there is the head honcho, the big guy, right? But what we have
Yeah.
is we have the masculine and the feminine forming the other two sides of that Trinity, which is just so amazing. And you know, I wrote the message up when I was in the mountain a few days ago, and again, I have to mention Amanda Lawrence here because she's just so divine and so always on. I had the liberty
Mhm.
to see, I believe yesterday, that she had started mentioning about the Trinity. So I knew that she had also received, you know, from divinity messages in conjunction with that. So I looked at her time. When I looked at her post, it said 20 hours ago. So then I went and looked at what I had written when I was in the mountains just to assure. So when I put back the time, what I was seeing is that actually on this linear time, the same time that I had received the Trinity message about the feminine, she also, perhaps at least at that time, or mayhaps before that, received the same sort of message. And I always smile with Amanda because, again, it's just pure divinity, and she's just so accurate in her connection to God as well. And she is one, and there's many more of you though, but yeah, she just just so amazing. So, again, also for it was a confirmation that I was not coming out and saying what I said now, and I did not post what I had written in the mountains yet. I have it there, and I may. But again, I do not need any confirmations, but I'm always so grateful when I do see them, and it is so important. Oh, and one thing I will share too is that when I was in the mountains speaking with Father and Council, that actually I was cut off from the Christ consciousness because of what we were discussing. So again, this is very important for Amanda, for her to receive that. It also very strongly indicates her connection to divine counsel and to the head honcho himself, because she would not have had that if not. So that was just so very impressive with her again, with that. But with all the divine comrades, I don't need anything to verify her authenticity, but let me say I'm that impressed that I needed to share that now.
Yes. Oh,
Yes,
that was so
that was
beautiful.
so
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah. Oh, indeed.
How amazing. Well, gosh, I don't know if we should go anywhere after that. I mean, that's like really powerful. That's really kind of our last point was about the Trinity, and how, why is it, the feminine created the change in the golden age?
Yeah, well, yeah. So, this is the golden age, if you wish to refer to
Yeah.
it as that, the age of Aquarius, what have you. It doesn't matter, but this is the time
Yeah.
again for the feminine to rise and equalize everything. You
Yeah.
can look at the intentional, um, the patriarch was intentionally suppress, well, the masculine, I should say, was intentionally suppressed. They were easier to condition because of, if we go right back to human instinct and the instincts of the male, well, they had the fear aspects, need to protect and provide, and all of these things. So, having said that, they were more prone to be conditioned than the feminine. Again, the feminine, were able to keep mostly in their heart, in their love state, while the patriarch or the masculine were conditioned to let go of those aspects and be, they were told to be more like a man, which actually separated the masculine from their true prowess, from their intuition, all of these other gifts. So for the matriarch or the feminine, it was indeed much easier, for them to advance very quickly. From my perspective, from the masculine, although I'm really not a great comparison because my qualities through my human existence were, let's say, not as protective and macho. But if you take another conditioned male, yeah, they were, and they were easily influenced. And, one of the big things, the alcohol with the matriarch or the patriarch, sorry, was a huge thing to also keep them further suppressed and controlled, and these sort of things. The substance, I mean, if you were to just go and do some statistics, you will most likely find that it's the majority of the males that can and do drugs. And I mean, that's very telling right there what it says. And it's very telling of, again, to a degree, why the feminine, again, are more powerful and in that state of love. But then also in your religions, where, certain religions where uh, the man of the house had to have more than one female or whatever. Well, actually, that's out of the masculine sphere that they do that. And again, these were all fear projections that are no longer supported, and they are coming down very rapidly, and they must, because this does not take us into 5D. We wish for the harmony, the balance, and the equality, and everything that is good, and also civilization out of the savagery.
Yes, yes. Well, and I think too, like you were saying earlier, this has all been an ill intent from the government, from the dark ones to uh, suppress the males and suppress the females, really. It was all intentional to do that. And, but where we're going and where we're headed, it's not going to be. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Again, well, I won't go back, through, yeah, I won't even do that.
Yeah.
Head
Yeah.
notes there. We already, generally skip through that because there are many
Yeah.
beliefs and different histories out there. And the main thing is to know that a lot of them are incorrect. You go by what you
Right.
feel inside, and that's what we
Yeah.
do. I mean, how much history is written about Atlantis? How much about Lemuria? Really, those histories are characterized by the mainstream society and, let's say, professionals as being mythical and all of these, when actually they're not. They are the truth. But I mean, are your children taught in school about Atlantis and the Lemuria, and all of these? No, they're not. So that means they're
No.
not taught the truth.
Right. Right. But they will be. They will
Yeah,
know for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah, we're in times, of incredible change, and what I wish to do, is I receive the information, uh, and we will be doing some more shows, I believe, coming up in the future, getting
Yeah.
onto the energy and the divine gifts. But your viewers, the viewers watching, once again, everything is energy, and that's how you work your magic, is through the energy. So it is important to fundamentally, at least, accepting that there is a polarity to energy, meaning there is negative energy and positive energy, but also know that when you're working with energy, that you can change all of the energy to positive. And you need to also know this in having your divine gifts. You cannot be one day negative and positive, or one day positive and negative the next. It doesn't work that way. You are not giving all of your controls to your divine gifts. You need to understand that, know how energy works, and clean your energetic fields and your energetic streams that you'll be projecting out there. Anything negative is not divinely supported. and it will disempower you, and it will take away your powers, and it will set you on your butt. And again, test it if you don't believe me, or just after you get tired of beating your head against a brick wall times, hey, perhaps listen to what I say. Just do everything morally,
Yeah.
ethically correct, and positively, and always in the state of love. And then, you might
Yeah.
wake up some morning and say you'd like a coffee, and your door opens and a cup of coffee floats into you. That
Woo!
means you got your divine prowess, right? And this is
Yeah.
the magic. So keep with it. It always works. Just because it doesn't seem like it works sometimes, there's reasons for that. But I can guarantee you, once you have crossed that threshold um, to your magic and are able to access the higher timelines where it's very active, then you can do it, and you'll be very impressed as well. So, if you're kind of negatively charged by things you haven't cleared yet, you'll keep yourself down into a lower 4D timeline where all of your magic is up here. So you might try as hard as you can, but nothing will work because you need to be up here where your energy is most positive, a higher frequency, where all of your gifts work. So you need to know that. Some of you are up here and you have become so powerful that you are dropping down in the 4D and finding that your gifts are still working. That's because you have done enough clearance of the negativity and the dark aspects that when you drop down here, you have mastered negativity and darkness, that you're not contaminated, that can more effectively and efficiently work down here. And this is part of your divine purpose and mission here. So when you get up here, get it all cleaned up, and on the Real Angels page, we are going to that to get everyone up here if we can. So the more we have up here, you got your arsenal of divine love and everything else. Then you're able to jump down here, have fun, do magic, get this hauled up beside us very quickly instead of instead of us prolonging what we need to do here. You have the power to do it. You're being equipped more and more every day. The trick is to keep the overall vibration risen, keep it to the highest, and you're just going to have so much fun with it.
Yay. Love that. Amen.
Yeah, we got to stay with it.
Yes, yes. And that's what you're calling the sub co-creator divine gifts, because we're co-creators, but we're sub co-creators. That's what you're talking about, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll use the term we are sub creators.
Sub
You
creators.
are a
Okay.
sub.
Not co.
You know.
Yes.
We have prime creator, so we do have a little bit of ordinancy there, but there is that hierarchy. Most of us, we do understand that there is the higher power. It's great, to think that you and believe fully that you are a God, because essentially you are. But we do have the one that we answer to, and many of you
Yes.
will recognize that there is some other force outside of you that is guiding and directing you, and it's not yourself. So there is that hierarchy to that extent, and we keep going forward, recognizing that. But it's perfect to understand you are a god or a goddess, because yes, you are in all respects, and you don't wish to limit nor restrict your prowess by thinking that you're not. Own it,
Own
walk
it.
it.
Jinx, same time. Own it. We are
Yeah,
owning
yeah,
it.
indeed.
Oh gosh. Well, is there anything any last words of wisdom? But does Father have to say anything? Anything that comes to mind that you'd like to share? Because yeah, it's just been beautiful.
Um, again, all the viewers, it's so important to keep connected with the like mind, doing your divine purpose and
Yes.
mission there. Sometimes you may become overwhelmed or inundated when you drop down into the lower densities or a 4D scenario. When you do, if it becomes kind of unbearable, your quickest way to get out of that, if you're unable to do it yourself, is to reach up and connect to another one of your divine comrades to, just speaking with them for an hour raises your vibration and gets you up out of that reality where your whole reality changes. So there is the importance of the unity and keeping connected to each other. That is so important.
Yes. Yes. And I did see somewhere on the Real Angels where there's mentors as well that people can reach
Yeah,
out.
yeah, that was quite cool. I
Yeah.
believe it might have been Sharon or someone that time requesting it, or that might have been another time. And yeah, uh, that has been divinely placed there for it. I very quickly just created it, and I have not been in there since. Yes, there are ones utilizing that. On the Real Angels, it's under constant construction, enhancing it more and more to have our higher tools uh, to assist and to expedite everyone forward as fast as we can. So uh, we are doing that. We are enhancing it and making the changes more and more to uh, for it to give the greatest punch, if you will, for everyone going forward. And many of us are tired. We wish to get out of here, and quicker we get our job done and get everyone raised up, well, the quicker we go. Walk on our ships.
Yeah. There you go.
Happy
There's
humanity, a happy human
yeah,
experience and civilization behind. They're okay then.
yeah,
They're on track. They're out of that
yeah.
primitive savagery.
That's right. That's
I,
right.
I,
There's been a few.
I
There's been a
love.
few. Go
Sorry.
ahead.
I,
Uh-uh.
I, I'd love to be a prime minister or just for a day or so here because I'd have so much fun with all the people. And very quickly we could bring down everything, globally.
We're going to
But
allow you to do that. So
no, I got higher things to do. It'll work out.
I know. I know. Well, there's been some posts about the January 11th and 19th from Amelia. She's been getting 11, January 11th.
Mhm.
Trying to get, oh. Please tell us about January 11th and January 19th. Oops.
Okay, Amelia, all that I received on that, and Father reminded me again today, just to put it out that these are significant dates, but for I also, the inner knowing is we recognize a certain numerology with that and different perspectives. Let me say, Amelia, that I'm not per se given what will actually occur. I'm not given any prophetic messages yet in respect to what may occur. All I was given is that they are significant to keep, perhaps keep your eyes on those dates. And for sure, afterwards, we will have some sort of inkling or full knowing of what had transpired. But again, And also, these are important because of so many of the awakened ones with numerical sequences, with numerology, with the energy attached to these beliefs. It is a very real energy. It does have power. It does affect things. The same as your 1212 gateway and these other sort of powerful dates in your calendar year. When you have a belief system and energy focused all at once, all together, it makes things happen. And also, that's why these two numbers, these two dates are also important, because it sets the stage also for some very big things of what, we always have big things happening, but they are significant. I'm just not given yet what they actually are indicative of, what they pertain to.
Okay. Somebody else also had mentioned the 22nd as well. She said the 22nd is just as important too.
Okay, thank you. And I can see that readily because
Trying to think who that was.
yeah,
No, go ahead. I'm just trying to find out where it was.
yeah, yeah. Also, I should include in that, because I was, and now that I recall, I put that post out just a little bit earlier, that I was also given 17, between the 17th and the 19th, I was actually given. And I just recalled that now. So those between the 17th and the 19th, that, let's say, that's sort of like a period there that is significant to some degrees as well.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good to know. And then Stephanie said she can see you as prime minister. Yeah. Go, Rick. We'll vote. You got
like,
our vote.
I'd like to be ruler of the world just for a day or so, to get our 12 overseers positioned on the planet, give everyone access to everything they need, and to wipe out the poverty and all of this in the blink of an eye, and which can be done, just so very quickly. All of the savagery and the problems within humanity could be corrected in the blink of an eye. So let's say it's also getting the right ones there at the heads of everything, does that as well, which we are doing. We are eliminating the elitist control. We have eliminated the dark, and we continue to do cleanup. So let's say anything inferior to divinity has no choice but to submit or run. Kneel down or run. And that's what it is.
That's right. And Hung mentioned a volcanic eruption. Anything
Hung,
on that?
Was there? Can she elaborate? Was there's so much going on with this dragon energy, and I need to converse with Hung on this as well. I haven't spoke with her for a couple days, but I wasn't readily given anything specific. However, the recent earthquake, its location was connected to volcanics, and also the GWDE, Great White Dragon energy, that we have brought into creation to assist and to combine the good dragon energies at this time. And the reason why that is important, we will be writing more on this, and perhaps Hung as well, is that the dragon energies is very powerful energies. The good ones, again, are divine. They are connected in the times of unity. They are important because they have been retained through history to this present time, because they are energetic beliefs. They have real value, they have real power. And in these times of unity, we bring everything that is good energetically together, and the dragon energies are part of that. When you do this, it is reflected into Gaia physically, as well as in your physical vessels. What happens with Gaia, because you're energetically, a lot of you females, and I as well, and some males, we are energetically connected with Gaia. And if there's birthing things going on with timelines and all of these things, well, uh, the ladies get affected, but I do too. And it's quite hilarious, some of the things that have transpired with this. But it's very real. It's not anything bad, not anything sinister. It's just how the energies affect the physical vessel and Gaia. Because what you need, the powerful angels, again, what you need to appreciate is that everything is energy, and your thoughts and what you are is how you also create. This is why your thought processes need to be streamlined while you're in these physical vessels, why they need to be purified of the negative extents, the negative polarities. That's why your mentality needs to be changed, because that's how you create. You're not given your creational prowess if you have negativity and fear that you cannot control. During your stages of being an empath, when you have mastered negativity and fear, you will still feel that, but it's not yours. You began then to feel others, to recognize and identify it, to know the energy you are actually working with, to be successful in that. So at first, it may become bewildering or confusing. You'll say, why are you feeling it? Well, this is why, because you have just reached another level of your development, your angelic development in dealing and mastering energies. But it doesn't stop there. Before, each one would work on a balance in their lives. But we are at the points now that no, it was all for rhyme and reason, and that you're finding out it was not just about you, it's about your mission right here, that you are more so embarking upon. And that's what it was all for. So always, yeah, you were in a school here to train your physical vessel for these times, and to do much more with it. You always felt that. You didn't know fully what it was. You were suspicious that there was something more. You suspected it. You were and are always correct. Trust your intuition. Even though you're not given what it is, you know that it's great and it's good.
Yeah, beautifully said. Thank you for that. Christine asked, Hung did respond to you, but I want to first mention, Christine said, what needs to be corrected?
Corrected. Okay, well, timelines need to be corrected. The lower timeline before we leave on the whole, if you wish to generally put it, and we are doing that. Overall, we are correcting the savagery and bringing it into a more harmonious, civilized, lower timelines for the human experience. But having said that, there are so many teams and so many divine ones that are assigned tasks to the many integral parts of it. You know, for instance, going into legal systems, going into governments, going into grid work, changing the polarity. There are just so many teams. You are all part of one, but yet you're assigned certain tasks to do things, all in conjunction with the divine plan. And this is why it's so important. At some of these levels, you see what you would call light workers attacking others for what they're doing. And really, everyone is correct in what they're doing. It is their task. So don't judge another by having preconceived notions from where you are right now that someone is wrong. Even if they're doing something dark, what you know is dark, there is a reason for that for someone else, and for someone that may be just reaching those levels to learn about the darkness so that they can master them. So it's very important not to compare yourself to anyone else, not to judge yourself. Follow your own path. Go with who and what resonates with you. Keep focused on empowering yourself. That is what this is about. But know that there are more like you, and that you join with those for support, the ones that are like minded, because that means that when you join with them, those are the ones that are also aligned with the similar divine purpose at this time. And that's why you identify with them, why it feels right, but it's also why you need to do it, because
So it just
no,
blinked off. Well, what up?
there
I
you
don't
go.
know. I just blinked out for a minute there. It was
You
really kind
did.
of crazy.
Well, where'd you go to
Fine,
7D
turn
or
synchronization, right, Stephanie? Who knows?
7D?
Stephanie was like, synchronization, yes. I mean, it was just, I don't know, it was so crazy. I have no idea what happened there, but yeah. And then Christine was actually responding to Jerry. So, yeah, but she said thank you for that. So, um, and then Hung did say on the 19th, the U.S. Volcanic eruption, the USA on the 19th, a volcanic eruption. I guess what
Okay,
happened on the 19th.
thank you for that, Hung. We need to speak too. Yeah, let us
Yeah.
know. Okay, it's perhaps maybe Yosemite. Um, okay,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. Hung's been watching those areas too. So, okay,
Okay.
interesting.
Yeah. Well, like you said too, you just mentioned about everybody being positioned where they need to be positioned and working on different things, and that's something that she's working on. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We
cool.
all have our tasks. We're all fully divinely protected while doing this, and nothing stands in the way. And what I
Yeah.
will share is that. So what we had, if I may,
Yes, please. Yes,
so
of
what we
course.
had, well, our last show, we mentioned about locking in the 5D grid, mostly over
Yes.
the US. So what we needed to do now was the next step was over to Japan, and I put a post or perhaps two over the last several days about that. So we are the lock-in sequence for your viewers. It occurs with usually, let's say, let's say it's not always the earthquakes, but those are a good one because it sets up the energetics and repositions things for a lock in for the 5D grid. So in some areas, there will be a divinely timed earthquake because of the energetics. It does it, but with this, as you see, there's no real destruction or harm with them. It's part of the process. But what the most important part is to what you may consider, others would consider sky phenomenon as well, and that's very important. But also your electrical grids, because they are affected by these immense energies when we're doing these lock-in sequences. If you could just think of it as the 5D being a layer that you're bringing down and locking in, because the 5D is an energetic layer. And when we bring that down closer to change Gaia into all 5D, this is what we're doing. We're bringing it down. You are all connected to this. The higher you become in vibration, the closer we bring it. And this is what's occurring now, is the lock-in sequences in different areas. It's more.
Oh, I love that.
It's a lot more. I was going to say a little more complex. It's a lot more complex, but essentially, this perhaps isn't an analogy or a way to visualize what is actually occurring, perhaps a simple way with it. And it's to let you know, again, there will be more of that lock-in sequencing. And at this point, Paula Fontanez, she did an important energetic sublayering preparation for this also several months ago. And when we do this divine work, you will see the actual confirmations. Again, it's not bullshit. It's very real. And you can say, wow, did that happen? We said it was going to happen. Yes, because it's real. These are your confirmations of it, that it is happening. So keep in your highest vibration, keep in your highest truth, everything that is good in your strength while we're doing this.
Yeah. And own it.
Yeah, we got 400.
Own all of it.
444 comments, Linda. Who just commented?
Oh my gosh. Jerry did.
Okay.
Jerry. Hey, Jerry, thanks for commenting. You just did 444. There you go. Love that. His comment was no worries. Woo! Yeah.
Here we go. Thank you. Divinely confirmed. No
exactly.
Worries.
Jerry, you just confirmed us.
You got to take note of these things, right? Like,
That's right. Well, I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, when we first come on air tonight, we had horns tooting, right? For the show. These are divine orchestrations and confirmations, and
that's right.
You cannot refute that. Once you get high enough in vibration and witnessing more of the magic, then these become commonalities. You might have a divine inspirational thought and we'll say, yeah, that makes sense. Then boom, big train horn whistle will blow or what have you. These are all your confirmations. When you look at, if you try to figure out the astronomical odds of these things occurring at exactly these same times, it will, let's say, fuddle your mind. So you might become discombobulated, is it? Yeah, that's it. So go with it and know that it's real.
That's right. Well, and I was just going to say that when you're on the road and somebody honks at you, know it's a confirmation. So whatever you were thinking,
yeah,
the angel's just working through that car just to give you a toot. So, and then somebody says, Stephen said, does Jerry win a prize? Okay, well, yes.
Yeah, he won it. He won the prize, knowing how important his comment was. At 444. So yeah,
Yes, that's right. Well, you guys are all beautiful. We love you. Well,
indeed.
I don't have any other questions. I mean, we could continue talking for sure. You know, there's nothing that we could not talk about, but
Well, if you want to,
so
I'm good if you want to do a little bit more question and answer, but you're the host, girl. I'm flexible.
uh yeah, I'm just seeing if there's any messages. In other words, well, Cheryl Lynn, she's just company on the 444 is your messenger. Yeah, I think she's relaying that too
Yeah.
to Jerry. Um, no, I don't really have anything. The only thing that I would just really kind of reiterate what you were saying is just really if we have anything that any magic or miracles that have happened to us is to post it and use the Real Angels page as connecting to your community to keep raising your vibration. And if you need any assistance, like Rick was mentioning earlier, for the children or singles, yeah, I think that's important just
Yeah.
to
Again,
reiterate that.
indeed, the unity. What you don't no longer need to do is to stand up alone. If you need the support of your angelic comrades, I fully encourage and suggest for ones of you, if someone needs assistance in these genuine matters, do not hesitate. Give them all of your support, that you can. We are not messing around, and we are not fooling
Mhm.
around with these sort of things anymore. And if, you have one that is singled out and uh, impositioned and, unjustly having things occur, no, don't leave them there. Unity, gather in support and say, no, it's not acceptable. That way we stamp out things so much quicker. Because if you leave
Mhm.
that keep occurring, uh, divide and conquer. That is one of the old dark angels uh, tactics. It's eliminate ones by instilling fear upon them, intimidating them. And, that was done intentionally. And many of you were targets, and you come to know that, by the dark, because they knew your abilities, they knew your futuristic capabilities, they
Mhm.
knew this. And that is a show in itself. But what I will say, they did not
Yes.
know what divinity knew, which is omnipotent, meaning that we knew it all anyhow, and that none of you were ever in any harm's way by being a target. And actually, many things were observed, and some of you saw when the dark imposed a little bit too much. Thank you, Danny. When the dark imposed a little bit too much, you saw the miraculous divine intervention, assuring that you were kept here in human form to fulfill your purpose. And this is why
Mhm.
so many of you on this subject will say, why wasn't I killed? Why didn't I die? How did I ever survive this? That's because we
Yeah.
are always here, and it is assured during, a huge spiritual battle that actually occurred. Some of these things are still playing out from remnants
Mhm.
of the dark energies. But let's say we cut off the big guy, the big dark guy from these, that these are more or less threads. Some, you're going to love this, some of them are divinely facilitated as well, to get you
Mhm.
up to speed very quickly and to get you to look in the right places and to overcome your fears. But let me say it was very real in the past that yes, many of you were targeted. And the reason why you weren't killed, that's because you're here and because you're divine and you cannot be killed and blah, blah, blah.
And we need you. And I wrote down about the, yes. And I wrote down just about the beliefs that all of that, what we talked about, because we talked about the history and all of that, you know, and where we leading up to today and all that, that it was all of the ill intent of the government and the dark forces. So just know that and stick to your truth and know your truth. And yeah, keep at that. And Amelia did have a question. She wanted to know your views on Michael Love. He's a channeler of the Palladians.
I'm not too familiar with Michael Love. Amelia, what I generally do, I am so busy that what I generally do is do not look at others. Occasionally, very occasionally, I will glance at them. Like, you know, sometimes, like I mentioned earlier in the show, Amanda Lawrence, I'll just glance to see what she is getting because the very odd time she will receive a message that I didn't receive. So, you know, the odd time when I'm instructed to look, there I will. But what I do is I don't tend to follow any of those. My main purpose is to assist I can. I'm an overseer of the Ascension, meaning that I look at the big scope of things, but also so I don't become so bored at just observing. I dive right in deep and I lift up as many as I can as well while I'm here. So having said that, I don't, let me say, I will say this, and I've said it before, all channelers and anyone in the spiritual community, if that's what you wish to call it, this whole ascension, every one of them is correct. And this is very important because, again, it pertains to the perspective and the levels ones are at. They always take value from everything. So when you're at this level and watching this show, it's very important to understand that and you use your own resonance feature, your heart, for your discernment to place you towards the things you should be looking at that further empowers you and enhances your growth. What I will say is it's very important not to question your gifts, your heart, your intuition. If you're looking at one that you feel it's not right, then you know that is your guidance mechanism to perhaps move on without judgment. You don't wish to get tangled up into negative energy constructs that are there for others. You don't need to waste time in those sort of things. You always do what you feel right, and that keeps you more streamlined on your own path, and it expedites your growth. Did I say enough?
Yes. Yes. I was just trying to get a Linda had thank you for that. Linda had mentioned something. I'm just trying, my computer's acting really weird. Oh, she had reached out to someone from Post and Real Angels. He said he removed entitles, etc. He said he had one but would not tell me anymore. He said she had one but would not tell her anymore. He's a herbalist and wanted her to purchase herbs. She just did not feel right about it.
Good, and you know, and go with your resonance features.
Go with your
discernment features. Now, on this Real Angels page, what we've been allowed to do is that there have been trolls in there. We left them there. certain ones. I do anyway. And there are also dark aspects that will come in there at times on this Real Angels page. And they are there for the admitting team knows that, if they're not so busy, that they take these grave opportunities to go in there to teach others, how you respond to trolls, how you change the polarity of negative posts, how you master the darkness. There are so many beneficial uses of having them on there. Now, I am, let's say, perhaps the main one that suggests to leave negative posts on there because they are invaluable for one's growth. However, one thing that I do not wish to see on there, and I've expressed, this with the amends, I do not wish, and we are not promoting ones that are extensively charging for services. I am totally fine with all donation ones because, that is an expression of their genuity. Of their overall divine intellect and much more. So, that is fully supported. Ones I have no problem with, ones that are modestly charge fees for some of their services because what we need to recognize is that we do have a large community and there are ones that do require a certain financial supplement and assistance. And they do this. And those are beautiful little exchanges. It's just when you get into the ones that are buying big cars, condos, and, that have commercialized and are capitalizing on something divinely that actually we're here to tear down the construct of money that is not supported by me, and I do not condone that. And that is not what the Real Angels page is about. Now, any of you know that in the past, what I teach and what I put out, I never put a charge on that. You know what I put out is authentic. You know it's higher truth. And one of my higher truths is as long as I'm here, Dad, no, I do not put charges on what I do, and I do not support those to extensive degrees where it becomes very blatant that it's being commercialized or that they are capitalizing on it big time. So
Yes,
donations,
great answer. So,
modest, modest fees on some services, yeah, they're great, but nothing extensive, please. Not that. We are a community to be all encompassing in assisting others. This is the thing. You have to have the good intent in your heart to assist others. If it's a selfish intent in a fear based promotion you're putting out that you think you need all this money or that you're getting greedy, you want to make a lot of money, it's not going to work. You're going to implode. Right. You are going to activate the karmic mechanisms that it will set you right on your butt. I will guarantee you this. This is a divinely supported Real Angel site that is there for training purposes and very serious powers that you need to have great discipline and respect for. And we are going much higher with the page, with the teachings and the learnings. A lot of these teachings have also been stashed away secretly. A lot of them are ancient. They have been here. They have been seeded upon the planet, but they were, let's say, stashed away for this most auspicious time. I love saying that, this most auspicious.
Well, it's 10:10, so that was great. I think that's a sign myself, but yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah.
Yes. So no more questions. Jackie says she loves the mug. It's so perfect. Did you have it turned around? I didn't see it.
Oh. Yeah, when I was speaking, yeah, that one,
Oh,
but
you
then
did,
she
Mister.
this one again.
I don't know if you were here for that one, Jackie, but yeah.
Okay. So here's Mr. Right, and here's Mrs. Always Right. You see that Mrs. Always Right, she follows her
And you're
intuition.
Mister Right. She what?
Yeah, I'm just Mr. Right, but I'm good with that.
You were gonna say she calls what with her intuition? What were you gonna say? Till I interrupted you.
Oh, she's always right because she follows her intuition, which is always right.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
So,
Well,
here I am. This is my feminine side, and this is my masculine side.
that's right. You're not afraid to show
No.
it. Well, Rick, I mean, now what are we do we know what we're gonna do next so we can kind of let them know? Are we gonna continue on with divine gifts? Or I know we're gonna talk about we will have some shows on twin flames and soulmates. Just not yet.
Yeah, that's an important topic. And if briefly, as many of you are finding that what you've been taught so thus far, what has been available on the twin flames, that what you're feeling that there's got to be more. So yeah, we may get into that. And again, you're feeling that's your intuition. You are correct. But as we go higher, perspectives change on that. And there
Yeah.
are different things. There is different reasoning. And I guess we'll leave that for the show. But yeah, the
Yeah.
Twin Flame show, also contemplating upon divine timing to, but what I think would be most beneficial is to comprise a list again, Linda, of some higher divine gifts and do a show and perhaps a question and answer through
Yes.
that show on them. So to present, the most clarity per perspective. Just a thought with that.
Yep. Sounds great. And I'm sure the viewers would like that for sure. Yeah, to do a Q&A. Definitely. Yeah.
Meantime, the show we did, Linda, with the prerequisites for the divine prowess. Um, I suggest homework for any of you that are seriously and genuinely ready to performing your divine purpose on a higher level. Read up on your prerequisites, feel comfortable that you're good with that you're at a good level where uh, you have your yin and yang, your dark and light aspects at least in balance or above. It should be above that. I would love to see you at what you feel is a level of master control on these energies or very close to it. Um, because then you'll be more effective when we are doing the show and when I'm explaining things. You can, let's say, more or less start after the show's over, begin using them and strengthening them because you have all of your prerequisites done and you are at the higher level where you have more control over your gifts because that's the way it works. So those prerequisites that we did a show on perhaps a week or so ago is very important.
January 1st. So 9 days ago, you guys, we did it. Yep. Awesome. Great. Okay. Well, tune in for that. I'll post something on that when Rick is guided to do the show. And yeah, Rick, as always, such a pleasure. I love doing the shows with you.
I love doing them with you, and yeah, this is just an amazing show again tonight, and we could have
Yes.
went so deep into things, but no, we don't need to go too deep in the things behind. We need to go deeper in the things ahead. That's where it's
Yes.
new and exciting and powerful. So
Yeah.
love all the viewers. I love you as well, Linda, and I am so
Thanks.
thankful that you're divinely sent to assist us in this ascension in this manner. It's just so perfect. Thank you, and thank you all your
Oh,
viewers. Love you all.
um, you're so welcome. It's such my pleasure, and I love it. I'm in my element, and I love it so, and I love being with all these beautiful people, and so thank you all for tuning in, for watching, for your comments, for your questions. They were great, and tune in for the next show. And again, this will be posted also via YouTube. So when you do go to in your own language, it will auto translate into that. So just be aware of that. And yeah, so thanks again, everybody. Love you, Rick. Thanks so much again. Appreciate you. All right, all right. Thank you, guys. Love you guys. Stay tuned for the next one. All right. Love you. Bye.
Oh, do I got to leave?
No, you don't have to leave. It's just
Oh.
my computer just wants to. Oops, there we go. Nope. We want to stay on. No. Oh, we could.
Well, I'll go out. Do you wish to I call you on
No,
Messenger?
you're good.
I'm good.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, you're good.